I want to shift the conversation now for you both. We've spoken a lot about, refurb, reinstatement and the decisions around, just processes, what your return on investment. So you're looking at what you're going to spend on the unit, what the upside's going to be on the resale to make sure you're recovering the costs. And I might start with you on this one, Mark. How are you bringing the lens of future care needs into your thinking on your units on the ground? Obviously, across the country, we talk quite a lot on the fact that residents are coming into villages older, and you've certainly have seen this over your 2 decades in the sector. Um, they're requiring care needs a little bit sooner. So if a resident average age of entry is 78, average age of entry into home care is 82. You've really got 4 years of independence with you before there's a likelihood of needing care and support. What lens are you putting on care when it comes to the future design and the future fit for units before you engage with someone like a Jolly to come in and deliver the work?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, James, nobody wants to be told they're getting old. So, yeah, walking into a bathroom where you've got grab rails left, right, and centre can come across as very aged care as opposed to independent living. So, we make sure there's the provisions there. Our builders make sure there's everything ready to go should a resident need grab rails in the future or straight away. But yeah, we found that across the board that we get a much better response to walking into somewhere without grab rails, but knowing that there is that option to put them in at a later date. Yeah, across the board now we've started increasing the height of our power points. So traditionally your power points have been fairly low. If you're an older person, bending over to try and put those in is really difficult. We trialled it just doing it in the bedrooms and at the bedside tables and got a really good response. And now we're sort of rolling that out throughout the living areas as well. We're fortunate in the sense that 14 of our 17 villages are co-located with aged care. So, yeah, we see a lot of residents coming in now and majority couples where one of them has some health concerns and is declining, and they're trying to make sure that the other partner is set up and they're essentially co-located. They can walk down the street, they can have lunch together, they can have dinner together. We're working with a resident in our village at Geelong at the moment whose husband's in the aged care facility to actually bring him over once a week to spend the night so they can have a bit more of a normal life. But I think that you're going to see it more and more. Obviously, things, and where you're sort of getting old stock, where you might have narrow doorways, where you may have, just some of those accessibility issues we're starting to look at, especially in the bathroom space. But ultimately, it's just trying to get that balance, I guess, between ensuring that you're keeping your product as an independent living unit, but also ensuring that you've got those care, you can enable those care needs should a resident needs it. We're also very fortunate that we've got a home care business as well. So a lot of our sites have a home care shop front where residents can access their home care facilities as well.
Excellent. While I've got you, you did raise the comment on grab rails. So grab rails, I'll stay with you as the operator. So you're reinstating or refurbing bathrooms back to their original condition. Grab rails aren't put in, which means Mary moves into one of your homes. She then puts an alterations and additions form in to get the grab rail installed. Are you then requiring an OT to come and measure them, or are you just letting her
Yeah.
son, who's also a pseudo
No, no, no,
handyman, just
no,
bolt it in on a Friday?
no. So it'll be it'll be going through working with an OT, working with a licensed builder and so forth. There's a range of conditions that have to be met in order for us to sign off on those alterations and additions forms. And and we're always very transparent with the residents around the fact that we may require you to make good at the end. Or you might end up having a purchaser who comes in and goes, "Oh, I need those grab rails. I'm happy for them to stay," and so forth. So, you have to be a little bit fluid with it. You have to remember that this is their home. And I'm sure that my team are probably at times get tired of hearing me say this and sound like a broken record. That when we're making these decisions, our decision comes back to if we didn't work for Calvary and my mum lived in in this village. And she rang me on a Friday night and said this decision had been made. As a son, would I be happy? And if that's not an overwhelming yes from us, then we're going back to the drawing board and we're getting to a point where, we do get that answer to being yes.
Yeah, that's a great lens to put on all decision making in the sector, Mark. Thank you. Jolly, from your perspective, when you're starting to sit down with clients and they're talking about units, a unit that was built 35, 40 years ago doesn't have the wider door frames because a lot of the accessible housing designs weren't in place at that point of view. So are there limitations on what you can and can't do in getting a unit ready to age in place? And are your clients talking to you about this, or are you in return putting it on their radar as something that they should be considering?
Some clients talking to us about that for sure, and we're certainly opening up rooms to be probably more expectations today where the kitchen's not closed up. Bathrooms are typically quite small, so yeah, trying to open them up as much as possible for a walker or a wheelchair in there is becoming, I suppose, a more common conversation. I know the Retirement Act change. I don't think operators are allowed to charge to remove a grab rail going forward. So there's actually there's grab rails there now where you can have fixing points put in the wall with a cap over them, and then when a grab rail needs to be installed, it'd be very quick to install it and then remove it on completion and use those caps. That's a very new change, and I think that's something that a lot of operators probably aren't necessarily aware of, but need to consider in their refurbs. And then, as Mark said, the builders can set it up for those handrails to be installed, and they'll be set at set spaces, and they'll be easy to remove later on without having to cost a lot of money.
Yeah. The thing with grab rails that always comes to mind is how you'd set it for a 6'2" Mark Eelston's different to how you might set it for like a 4'8" Mary
Yes.
who's moved in. So get that measurement question is actually quite an important one that Mark answered a moment ago. So I think that's really interesting to see how care's coming into it, especially with what you can and can't do. Obviously, what you've got inside the four walls is what you've got. So you are limited in many regards, but I just find it interesting that operators are already talking about not what will make the unit desirable to sell today, but what will make it livable in 2, 3, 4, 5 years' time as that resident age in place. It really shows an acceptance that care is part of the value proposition and the built form in the sense of the unit, not just in the common areas, is something that we need to be cognizant of. But obviously, John, there is a limit. Some older units, I know, to still have steps into them and those sorts of things. So taking them to zero threshold can be a little bit difficult, can't it?
Yeah, to meet code, it can be it can be very expensive depending on the layout of the village. But we've got a couple of operators where they've got older units where they just didn't have the garages integrated with the units. They might have a bank of garages to the side. We've got one in particular where we're looking at adding a garage into the unit and then doing an extension on the back. So it still retains a 2-bedroom unit, but it has an integrated garage. And then they can pull the garages down and put a new unit there, which will, it might put another 20 units into a village, which certainly offsets the cost of doing the modifications and changes the value of those units dramatically.